Hey guys, let's take a look at a mixed factoring review. So we're going to bring everything in the unit in together right now. So like I told you, you are going to be factoring for the rest of your mathematical career. As long as you're doing math, you're going to have to factor. So we want you to be able to factor anything that comes at you. So we're going to show you each different type in one lesson. So what we're going to do for every single problem, we're going to check to see, does it have a greatest common factor? And then if whether there is or there isn't, let's see what's left. Is there a difference of squares? Difference of squares, remember, is going to be a perfect square minus another perfect square. If it looks something like that, you're going to go look at your 8.5 notes. If you're left with a quadratic trinomial, that's like ax squared plus bx plus c, then we're going to use stuff that we learned in 8.3 and 8.4. If you're left with something that has 4 terms, we're going to factor by grouping. And we did that in section 2. So let's take a look at this first one. Do we have a greatest common factor with 28x squared and negative 63? Yeah, my greatest common factor is going to be 7. So I'll divide both of these terms by 7. 28 divided by 7 is, 4. X squared, then there's a minus. 63 divided by 7 is 9. So now we're going to look on the inside of there. We have 4x squared minus 9. Well, 4x squared is a perfect square, and 9 is a perfect square. So we can use difference of squares here. So remember, to find that a term, we'll take the square root of my first term, 4x squared. The square root of 4 is 2. The square root of x squared is x. To find that b term, we'll take the square root of 9, which is 3. So we can turn that into x plus 3. 2x plus 3, 2x minus 3. And we always remember to bring our greatest common factor with it. Okay, let's look at the next one. Do we have a greatest common factor with 3x squared, 9x, and negative 30? Yeah, greatest common factor is 3. So to find out what goes inside of the parentheses, we divide each of these by 3. 3x squared divided by 3 is x squared, plus 9x divided by 3 is 3x, minus 30 divided by 3 is 10. So we have 3 terms in there. That is a quadratic trinomial. So we are going to go ahead and split the middle term. So I know I'm supposed to have a 1 in front of that x squared if there's nothing written there. Remember, we're just going to ignore our greatest common factor. So we're going to multiply our ends. 1 times negative 10 is negative 10. My b value is 3. So I want to find 2 numbers that multiply to be negative 10 and add to be 3. So that'll be positive 5 and negative 2. So we'll split our middle term into 5x, positive 5x, minus 2x. And we still have that x squared in the front, minus 10 in the back, and we're making sure to bring down our greatest common factor. So now we'll look for the greatest common factor of x squared plus 5x. My greatest common factor there is x. When I factor out that x, I'm left with x plus 5 on the inside of those parentheses. I know that I want these 2 sets of parentheses to be the same. Since I have a negative 2x minus 10, I have to divide both of these by negative 2 to be able to get positive x plus 5 inside of those parentheses. And then we will remember to bring down our greatest common factor. So we'll take out the binomial that they have in common, x plus 5, and we're left with stuff on the outside. x minus 2, and we'll remember to bring down our greatest common factor. So there's our answer right there. All right, do we have a greatest common factor with 4x squared plus 7x minus 2? No, I don't have a greatest common factor there. So I'm just going to have to go ahead and split the middle term since we have a quadratic trinomial there. We will multiply our ends. 4 times negative 2 is negative 8. Our b value is 7. We want two numbers that are going to multiply to negative 8 and add to 7. So that will be positive 8 and negative 1. So we'll split our middle term into positive 8x minus 1x. We still have that minus 2 in the front, or in the back, and 4x squared in the front. So we'll look for our greatest common factor of our first two terms. The greatest common factor of 4x squared and 8x is 4x. Ooh. So we'll divide both of those terms by 4x to find out what goes inside of the parentheses. 4x squared divided by 4x is x, and there's a plus sign. 8x divided by 4x is 2. We know at the end of this we want our parentheses to match, so we want a positive x plus 2. What do I divide negative 1x and negative 2 by to get positive x plus 2? Negative 1. So we'll factor out the binomial that they have in common, x plus 2. And the other parentheses, the stuff on the outside, 4x minus 1. Okay, this time, once again, we have like terms, right? So, or we have two terms, I'm sorry. Now, when I'm looking at that, yes, we have a greatest common factor of 2. But, here's what we can't, well, we even have a bigger greatest common factor, don't we? We have a greatest common factor there of 4. So, our greatest common factor of 64 and 4 is actually going to be 4. 64 divided by 4 is 16. That x squared comes along for the ride, minus. 4 divided by 4 is 1. So now what we'll do, we have 16x squared is a perfect square and 1 is a perfect square. Since we only have two terms, that's a difference of squares. So to find that a term, we would take the square root of 16x squared. The square root of 16 is 4. The square root of x squared is x. To find that b value, we'll take the square root of 1, which is just 1. So 16x squared minus 1 will factor into 4x plus 1, 4x minus 1, and we just need to remember to bring down our greatest common factor. All right. Do we have a greatest common factor with x cubed 3x squared minus 5x minus 15? No. With all 4 of those, do I have a greatest common factor? No. So now, since I have 4 terms means I'm going to factor by grouping. Factoring by grouping is this step right here. So you've done it several times. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at our first 2 terms and find the greatest common factor of x cubed plus 3x squared. My greatest common factor there is x squared. We'll divide both of those terms to get what goes in the parentheses. X cubed divided by x squared is x, plus 3x squared divided by x squared is 3. We know we want our 2 sets of parentheses to match here at the end. So what do I need to factor out of negative 5x minus 15 to get positive x plus 3? Yeah, I need to divide by negative 5 here. That means I have a negative 5 out here. So we'll factor out that common binomial, that x plus 3. And then we're left with stuff on the outside. x squared minus 5. Okay, do we have a greatest common factor with x squared, negative 6x, and 16? No, we don't have a greatest common factor among those three numbers. So we have a quadratic trinomial here because I have three terms. So I know I have a 1 in front of that x squared. We'll multiply our ends. 1 times negative 16 is negative 16. Our b value, that guy in the middle, is negative 6. What multiplies to negative 16 and adds to negative 6? Negative 8 and positive 2. So we'll split our middle term into positive 8x minus 2x. The negative 16 is still in the back. That x squared is still in the front. We'll look for the greatest common factor of our first two terms. The greatest common factor of x squared and 8x is x. X squared divided by x is x, plus 8x divided by x is 8. We know we want these set of parentheses to match at the end, so what do I have to divide negative 2x minus 16 by to get positive x plus 8? Negative 2. So we'll factor out what they have in common, that x plus 8, and we're left with the stuff on the outside, x minus 2. Do we have a greatest common factor with 9x squared, 12x, and 4? No, we don't have a greatest common factor there at all. So we're just going to have to go ahead and split the middle term since this is a quadratic trinomial. It's squared, it has three terms. So we'll multiply our ends. 9 times negative 4 is 36. Our b value in the middle is negative 12. Since we're multiplying to a positive and adding to a negative, that means that both of these numbers are going to be negative. So what multiplies to 36 and adds to negative 12? Negative 6 and negative 6. So we'll split our middle term into negative 6x minus 6x. 4 is still in the back. 9x squared is still in the front. Then we'll look for the greatest common factor of our first two terms. The greatest common factor of 9x squared and 6x is going to be 3x. 9x squared divided by 3x is 3x. Negative 6x divided by 3x is negative 2. We know we want 3x minus 2 inside of these parentheses. So what do I have to divide negative 6x and 4 by to get positive 3x and negative 2? Yeah, I have to divide by negative 2. So I'll have a minus 2 right there in between. So we'll factor out what they have in common, that 3x minus 2, and then we're left with the stuff on the outside, 3x minus 2. If you wanted to, you don't have to, but if you wanted to, you could rewrite this as 3x minus 2 squared, since I have the same thing multiplied by itself. Okay, do we have a greatest common factor with 24x squared and 30x? Yeah, we absolutely do. So 6x is our greatest common factor. 6 is the biggest number that goes into both 24 and 30. And my smallest exponent here is x. So we'll divide both of these terms by 6x to find out what goes inside of the parentheses. 24 divided by 6 is 4. X squared divided by x is x. Then there's a plus. 30 divided by 6 is 5. And then the x's cancel out. So that's my answer. I know I'm done because I don't have another squared in there. If I had a squared, I would want to look at it and see if I had a difference of squares or something like that. Do we have a greatest common factor with 16x squared plus 4x minus 6? Yeah, our greatest common factor is going to be 2. So we'll divide each of those terms by 2 to find out what goes inside of my parentheses. 16x squared divided by 2 is 8x squared plus 4x divided by 2 is 2x minus 6 divided by 2 is 3. So we have a quadratic trinomial in there. It's squared, and there's 3 terms. It's a quadratic trinomial. So we're going to have to split the middle term. We're going to multiply our ends. 8 times negative 3 is negative 24. And 2 is that guy in the middle. So we want to find 2 numbers that are going to multiply to negative 24 and add to 2. So that will be 6 and negative 4. So I'm going to split my 2x into 6x minus 4x. We still have that minus 3 in the back and 8x squared in the front. And we will not forget about our greatest common factor. Oops, sorry. So now we'll look for our greatest common factor of 8x squared and 6x. That greatest common factor is going to be 2x. 8 divided by 2 is 4. X squared divided by x is x. Then there's a plus sign. 6 divided by 2 is 3. X divided by x cancels out. We know we want a 4x plus 3 here in the parentheses. So what do we need to divide out of negative 4x and negative 3? Negative 1. We'll factor out that binomial that they have in common, 4x plus 3, and then we're left with the stuff on the outside, 2x minus 1. Here we have 4 terms. Since we have 4 terms, we're going to factor by grouping. So remember, that was this step right here is factoring by grouping. So we'll take the greatest common factor of 9x cubed and 9x squared. Our greatest common factor there is going to be 9x squared. So remember, x squared is the smallest exponent I have there. So 9x cubed divided by 9x squared, well, the 9's cancel out, and 2 of the x's do. So I'm just left with an x to the first, plus 9x squared divided by 9x squared. Anything divided by itself is 1. We know we want to have x plus 1 in these parentheses over here. So what do I need to factor out of negative x minus 1? I need to factor out a negative 1. So we'll take out the binomial that they have in common, x plus 1, and we're left with 9x squared minus 1. Now, let's take a look at this 9x squared minus 1. There's 2 terms. They're both perfect squares, and they're being subtracted, right? That is a difference of squares. So a will be the square root of that 9x squared. So that will be 3x. B is going to be the square root of 1, which is 1. So this 9x squared minus 1 will factor into 3x plus 1, 3x minus 1. And we'll just make sure to bring down that x plus 1 as well. So this right here is actually my answer. All right, guys, good deal. See you later.